Anyway, Congressman Rob Wittman of Virginia in the first district there, he's a biologist. He's demanding answers. And he, along with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, have introduced a bill to take action against Chinese health officials regarding the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, which we all listen. It kind of became very transparent to me when, all the talk about Donald Trump's travel ban on, of all days, January 31st. That was the same day that Anthony Fauci, the great flip-flopper, had gotten an email saying it looked like gain-of-function research had been done on coronavirus based on the study of the genome of this virus, one particular genome of this virus. Anyway, that was 10 days after the first identified case in the U.S. Now we have a lot of concern, just to add, insult to injury here, about this new variant of the virus, which we're now beginning to think is far more dangerous than even the original virus, and something we all are going to have to start paying a lot of attention to, because if in fact it is worse, we're now going to have to wonder, worry, be concerned about whether in fact this becomes something that is going to become another health issue. But anyway, Congressman Rob Wittman, also a biologist, joins us. So it seems to me, everybody should have known very early. The only one that stated it publicly was Donald Trump. There were a few of us in the media when we looked into the lab and we found out they studied coronaviruses. Now we have videos of bats that are flying around that same virology institute, and we knew they were involved in gain of function, and Dr. Fauci knew. So now we're finding out from this defector that, in fact, all of this was happening and that they were weaponizing viruses in this lab. Do you believe that to be true, Congressman?
Well, Sean, there's a ton of information out there that would make you question what was happening at the Wuhan lab. And I believe that we need to be gathering every bit of intelligence, including what we've had from defectors, and then taking action. Listen, as a biologist, I know when you work with these pathogenic organisms in these labs, you have to take extraordinary care. These organisms are tremendously lethal if they are mishandled. And to have that source there and then all of a sudden say, no, it was a live market. And for China not to allow an open, independent investigation, and for the World Health Organization to essentially be complicit with them and say, oh, by the way, China, you investigate yourself and you tell us what you find. I mean, here we are today, and just as you said earlier, when President Trump said, hey, we need to be looking at this, there's something going on there. When Senator Tom Cotton said, we ought to be looking at this. When others of us said the same thing, we were all dismissed as, this crazy conspiracy theorist. Now what we're seeing is, as intelligence builds and as we see Chinese Communist Party officials really going after folks in the scientific community, all of a sudden you see whistleblowers disappear. You see any journalist there that is willing to report on this all of a sudden be attacked by the Communist Party. There is so much there, I believe, Sean, that needs to come to light. It will only come to light if there's an independent, objective investigation that goes on. And I believe unless that happens, that there needs to be consequences for China. You can't just say, well, we'll have our intelligence community take a look at this and give me a report in 90 days, which is what the president's saying. And then today, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, says, well, China could face isolation from the international community. No. This is about the death of 600,000 Americans and 3.4 million people worldwide. This has got to be more than just, we're going to have some isolation for China. This has got to be about strong and decisive action against China, against those Chinese Communist Party officials, about making sure that we go after them, that we sanction them. That's what I believe is going to get things happening. We want to make sure, too, we prohibit any funds from U.S. institutions, colleges, universities from going to the Chinese National Health Commission, which is what was funneling money to the Wuhan lab. I want to know where every penny from any U.S. institution or from any U.S. agency went for gain-of-function research there. There's a lot that I think we don't know about that either. Those things are incredibly important, and I think we ought to be giving kudos to Taiwan, who early on said, hey, look at this, there are issues here. I think we ought to give Taiwan observer status in the World Health Organization. I think they ought to be lifted up because they spoke out early. Instead of China that all they did was seek to cover this up. I mean, there's so many things here that we have to find out about. And if we don't, we are doing not only a disservice to every family that suffered through the death of their loved ones here, but everybody who has had the disease and the 3.4 million people that died worldwide. I think the world deserves answers.
All right, quick break. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll continue now with Congressman Wittman, more on the origins of the Wuhan virus, COVID-19, at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. All right, as we continue, Congressman Rob Wittman of Virginia, also a biologist, is with us. What do you think of, and I'm reading a lot about this new Delta variant of COVID-19, which seems somewhat concerning in as much as it is more infectious and more lethal. I have one doctor friend of mine explaining it to me who's actually concerned that the Delta variant may actually only be an intermediate variant. It represents about 10% now of all new cases in the U.S., and that even a more virulent form of the virus could be the immediate outcrop of this Delta variant, if I'm saying that right.
Well, Sean, I think we should all be concerned about anything that happens with this virus as it mutates, and it will mutate. We see that with all viruses out there that infect human beings. We see it with the flu virus each year. The question is can we get in front of what those virulent new strains might be? Will the existing vaccines work for that? And I know that they are investigating exactly that particular case. The key is to be able to quickly identify any mutation in this virus, to be able to identify the specific genetic code there so that we can, if necessary, do things like we've done before to be able to get out in front of it. The only way we can do that is to understand it. Remember, we went to China early on and said, by the way, can you give us the genetic code to this COVID-19 virus? And they didn't do so off the bat, which hurt the whole effort to research it, to understand it, to understand, too, how do we develop a vaccine? How do we look at therapeutics for that? It is critically important that as soon as these new strains come about, that we identify them, we understand the genetics of them so that we can respond to them, and then quickly understand, will the current vaccine work against those new variants?
I mean, it's just the whole thing is scary. Do you think that the Pfizer, Moderna, J&J natural antibodies, do you think that would be enough to fight off any variant, or do we have to then concern ourselves about a new vaccine down the road?
Well, Sean, I think we're going to have to look very carefully as these new cases come about, and you're going to have to determine, are these individuals that are exhibiting the disease, first of all, have they been vaccinated? Second of all, what symptoms are they exhibiting? Are they sublethal symptoms? Are we having people that are now dying from this new variant? And that'll give us an understanding as to whether the current vaccines are working. And if they are not, then yes, that causes deep concern. And then the question is what do we do to be able to treat individuals, first of all, because it takes a little while to develop a new vaccine. The question is do you just need to put a slight variant in this vaccine, which is a technology that uses RNA, which is the genetic material from the virus, this messenger RNA. You can develop a vaccine more quickly, but again, it's a pretty Herculean task. It's amazing what was able to be done under Operation Warp Speed to get this vaccine done. The question would be is how genetically different is a mutation of this virus, and is the current vaccine working, and is there something that you could do to make minor modifications to that? If you can keep the number of people that get sick from any new variant of the virus small, then it's much, much easier to contain it. But as numbers get bigger and bigger, as we saw with the original COVID-19 virus strain, it becomes orders of magnitude more difficult once it gets to that point.
Well, we appreciate you being with us, Congressman Rob Wittman of Virginia, also a biologist. It gets a little scary as time goes on. I mean, I think we've kind of been through enough hell here. And life finally being back to normal, at least for me it's been, has been beyond refreshing. We appreciate you being with us, Congressman. Thank you. Keep us up to speed. Any new developments, okay?
We'll do it, Sean. Thanks again.
I mean, you have to be pretty ignorant to just ignore the obvious. But this is now the impact of the mob. The mob was, oh, no, that's a debunked conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy theory. No, that's a debunked conspiracy theory. No, it wasn't. I mentioned the travel ban. I didn't finish my thought. But once China implemented their own travel ban that you couldn't leave Wuhan province and go anywhere else in China, and you couldn't come from China into Wuhan province, but you could leave Wuhan and go anywhere else in the world, that was a pretty good indication that the Chinese government knew damn well how dangerous this was, and they covered it up. Quick break, right back.